In early 2025, the United States stood frayed not just by ideology but by numbers, hard, irrefutable, and uncomfortable. The tipping point came not with a bang, but with a statistic: 2.1 million Social Security numbers issued to non-citizens under the watch of IRS Commissioner Melanie Krause. It wasn't a glitch. It wasn't a typo. It was the opening line delivered by Elon Musk at a congressional hearing that turned into a reckoning. Gone were pleasantries. He walked into that chamber not like a billionaire, but like a man holding both the national debt and a ticking time bomb. His data binder hit the polished desk with the echo of a war drum as his team displayed visuals, timelines, and hard drives loaded with inconvenient truths. Krause entered composed in a tailored blue suit, greeted by applause from the left-leaning press. To many, she was the last line of compassion. To millions watching, she was about to become something else entirely. Among those watching closely was Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, silent but poised, her folder titled Immigrant Advocacy Brief resting like a loaded weapon. The chairman opened the hearing with a dry formality of officialdom, but it was Musk who shifted the air in the room with one number. A simple bar graph appeared behind him. 270,000 SSNs to non-citizens in 2021, 2.1 million by 2024. No errors, just trend lines. He asked Krause directly under whose authority those numbers were distributed, and then clicked to another slide. 1.3 million non-citizens on Medicaid. He didn't yell. He didn't need to. The air turned surgical. Every sentence was a scalpel. Krause's practiced composure cracked only slightly, but in Washington, that's enough to smell blood. She responded with polished language and vague justifications. The pandemic, automation, humanitarian necessity. Elon countered. A system that bypasses fraud filters and verification protocols doesn't make mistakes. It makes intentional decisions. He called it compassion by keyboard. Then AOC entered the ring, voice ringing with righteousness. She shifted the narrative from data to dignity, from numbers to nameless immigrants sweeping floors and raising children. Applause broke out. CNN called her words a voice of humanity. But Musk was unshaken. Calmly, he returned fire, reminding her in the room that policy isn't poetry, and that behind those stories was mass fraud dressed as compassion. He accused not with anger, but precision, of voter engineering, of bypassing safeguard to construct a digital pipeline not for asylum, but for votes. And then, the real detonation, Russell Vought, director of the Office of Management and Budget, took the floor. With clinical clarity, he unveiled the system's architecture, an SSN allocation protocol restructured in April 2022 that completely disabled ID verification. It wasn't a mistake. It was policy. He showed an email from Krause herself authorizing the changes, prioritizing speed over verification. Elon, never theatrical, let the facts burn. The employee ID approving mass unverifiable applications. M. Krause. The order to disable two-step verification. Signed by her. Melanie's last offense, plausible deniability, was stripped live on camera. Even AOC, freshly firebrand minutes earlier, sat in silence, her indignation replaced by something less tweetable. Doubt, but Elon wasn't done. He clicked again. This time, he presented the architecture, 5 steps from undocumented entry to voter enrollment. It was not a policy failure. It was a pipeline. Behind it, a memo marked confidential described the goal, every profile, a potential voter. And in the final blow, a recording from a 2023 internal meeting caught Krause saying, "The more we let in, the faster we can redraw the electoral map, especially in Texas and Florida." There was no euphemism, no plausible misinterpretation, just raw intent. Krause froze, no longer composed, no longer in control. Her legacy crumbled under the weight of her own words. AOC rose once more, crying out against the hearing as a public execution masquerading as oversight. But her voice, though sharp, was now hollow. Musk responded not with rage but with reality. He had walked through immigrant neighborhoods. He had invested in them. What he hadn't done, he said, was weaponize their pain for votes. As the room reeled, the chairman called a recess. The news cycle detonated. Hashtags exploded. Footage of the hearing went viral. Within hours, the IRS announced it had transferred all immigrant records to federal enforcement agencies. Melanie Krause resigned via PDF citing mental health. ICE launched Operation Clearmap to retroactively verify all SSNs issued since 2021. There were no press conferences, just digital executions of corrupted policy. Elon, having dismantled the machine, vanished from the spotlight. His final statement echoed across networks. This isn't a hunt. This is enforcement. They broke the law. They are not citizens. They are client to political engineering, and we're revoking the subscription. America had witnessed not a scandal, but the collapse of a silent system built to reshape its future without consent. And this time, the cover-up was not hidden in secrecy but broadcast live. He continued, "You become the most visible non-legislator in America, a performance artist with a verified badge, a one-woman hashtag campaign with no legislative yield." She argued she co-sponsored dozens of bills. "That's like signing a yearbook and calling yourself valedictorian," he replied. "You sell slogans like people sell gasoline. Only gas helps people get somewhere." As the hearing dragged on, the headline sharpened. Asterisk not a lawmaker. Just a hashtag machine. Asterisk outside. A young woman watched the exchange on her phone and muttered, "I didn't vote for an influencer. I voted for someone who'd fight for us." Then came the broader lens. The media pivoted to a trend. AOC wasn't alone. Hassan, the Twitch socialist, sipping lattes from his West Hollywood mansion. Bernie Sanders, millionaire from book sales about dismantling wealth. Socialism had become a brand, a business model, a curated aesthetic of outrage sold in fleece and tweet threads. They were no longer speaking for the people. They were selling to them. AOC returned to the Bronx. The crowd was thinner. The applause muted. "I've always fought for this community," she began, but was met with skeptical faces. A janitor in uniform asked, "Why are you telling us to fight the rich while flying over us?" Another man said quietly, "You don't represent the Bronx anymore. You represent your wallet, and we ain't in it." Back in her office, alone under the dim light of a laptop screen, she watched the fallout unfold. Mentions exploding. Hashtags multiplying. The headlines no longer asked asterisk if asterisk the brand was broken. They declared it. She scrolled, silent. Her finger hovered over her own profile, every post now buried in contempt. "You wanted privacy," one tweet read. "You got it. Nobody's watching anymore." On TV, J.D. Vance was speaking again. "What Americans want isn't another icon," he said. "They are not looking to be inspired. They are looking to be represented. You can't lead a movement if you're too busy building a brand." The camera zoomed in. They were given a symbol. What they needed was someone real. She closed a laptop. No applause. No celebration. Just quiet. Somewhere in the Bronx, a teenager folded her asterisk eat the rich asterisk hoodie and tucked it in the back of her drawer. She didn't look back.